Hi, welcome to Coffee with Carrie. Here's your host, Carrie Lazat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Carrie. I am Carrie Lazat, your Director of Cable and Community Relations here in Bloomfield Township. And this is the live show where I talk to people who help make Bloomfield Township a wonderful place to both live and to work. And with me today, I have our assessor, Darrin Kraatz. Is that right?
That's correct.
Not Kraatz,
Yep.
Kraatz. So I did ask. So we just know him around here as Darrin. So welcome
Thank
to
you.
Coffee with Carrie.
Appreciate it.
And so I have to say that, so Darrin was one of the people that interviewed me when I applied for this job, and he didn't say very much. And it was the one position that I actually had to Google and look up because I wasn't sure what an assessor does. And so Darrin is going to explain his job to us and how you ended up here at the township. And I guess you went to Central Michigan. That was a while ago. Yep. And so what was your, how did you end up here?
Well, so most people in assessing don't actually go to school to become an assessor. It's not, it's not a course that they offer either at high school or colleges. So it's a kind of a running joke in this industry that most people just kind of fall into being an assessor. I was 24, 25 years old, and I was wanting to be a city manager someplace. But unfortunately for me, not many communities are willing to give the keys to a 24-year or 25-year-old fresh out of college to run the city. So I had a gentleman that was a mentor, kind of became a mentor of mine. And so I was sitting down talking to him one day, and he said, "Hey, why don't you think about doing this?" And so I did. So I took that information and I got my couple of my state certifications right away, and was fortunate enough to get a job pretty early on out in South Lyon. And then shortly thereafter, the gentleman who kind of pushed me into this direction had a job opening. And so I went over there to Mount Clemens. I worked there for, I think, 6 or 7 years, somewhere in that ballpark. And then Bill Griffin, the former assessor prior to me, actually said, "Hey, I have an opening over here. Why don't you come over here?" So, I did, and the rest is history. I've been here for, I'm in my 18th year now, but now my 8th year as the assessor here. So
when he said, think about doing this, what did he tell you? What sold you on the job? What made it interesting for you?
Well, honestly, the fact that I could get a job and start making money, because, I just got out of school and had some student loans that I had to pay back.
I'll do anything.
Yeah, right. And it was kind of one of those things
okay.
This seemed like the best route at the time and quickest way to get a job, full-time job.
Right.
And so as it turns out, it's been a great career path. And I certainly would encourage, anybody who's kind of in the middle of jobs or who's kind of, struggling to find a job right out of high school or right out of college to entertain this as a profession.
So tell me what a day in the life is like. What does an assessor do? Or I guess it's the positions you were hiring were for appraisers initially, and then an assessor. So what is the role? How do you fit into government? What is the job?
Okay. So basically what we do in our department is we're responsible for valuing all the real and personal property in the community. We create the true cash values of the properties. 50% of the true cash value is your assessed value. And so that's really our biggest task. We don't create taxable value. We don't create any of that type of stuff. We create the assessments. We create the true cash values. And the taxable values, for the most part, are just really a mathematical formula based on when Proposal A came into effect in 1994. So, with the exception of new construction properties.
So when I look at, Zillow, how does Zillow relate to what you do? Because what I'm looking at, my house it seemed like recently on Zillow, it's just gone up a lot in value, and so much that we really don't believe it. So how does that number relate to what is the actual cash value?
Yeah, so Zillow is pretty good. They're pretty accurate for the most part. When we have the board review in March, we'll have a lot of people bring comparables from Zillow in. And for the most part, it's pretty accurate. occasionally they're pretty far off on a few of them, whether it's high or low compared to where we're at. In an ideal world, our value would be exactly the same as Zillow's, or Zillow's would be exactly the same as ours. But I'm not exactly sure where they get their information from as far as how they calculate out, the value of the property. But, for us, we use the sales. And this year we had an exceptional year as far as values go. We had a ton of really, really good sales throughout the township, which was nice to see. And
what is that? I'm going to say, what is a really, really good sale? What does that mean?
Well, I guess a really, really, really good sale would be something from, any neighborhood in the township, and it sold for, a pretty good amount of money.
Okay.
So compared to where our assessments were at. So,
So it sells for beyond what your assessment
correct,
is.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I think I interrupted you. So
no, and I mean that's really just, I mean, the Zillow thing when it first came out was kind of a mess. I mean, the information was inaccurate, it was wrong, it just was a nightmare for us to have to deal with that at the Board of Review. But over the course of time, they've gotten their act in order, and they've gotten their information pretty accurate. And I say for the most part, the assessments that we have and what Zillow feels some of these properties worth is they're pretty close usually. So.
Okay. I do want to say to our viewers, because we have 4 people watching right now. So if you're watching and you want to say hello to us, or if you have a question for Darrin, you can ask it live. And if you're watching this recorded later, then you can always get in touch with him or the assessing office by calling 248-433-7710 or emailing them. And do you like talking to the community?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
100, yeah.
What do they ask you when they come in?
For the most part, they, if they come in this time of year, they just want to kind of get an idea or an understanding of what they are being assessed for, how they're being assessed, or they'll have a question about, we're thinking about doing an addition, we're thinking about doing maybe a garage addition, we're thinking about redoing our bathrooms, our bed, or our kitchen, that kind of thing, and they want to kind of know what the impact of that project would be, and we always tell folks, especially when we're dealing with bathrooms, roofs even, this time of year is always big for roofs. They always are concerned that their values are going to go up because they do a roof or they replace their windows and things like that. And those are all maintenance items. So, we don't reduce values because you need a new roof or because you need new windows. So when you do that type of project, we don't increase the values either. Those are just strictly
replacement.
Replacement.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Furnaces, ACs, those types of things, those fall in that category. Siding, if they're going to repaint their house.
What kind of thing is really going to increase the value when you do your assessing? You want to increase your value. What's going to do that for you?
As far as the homeowner goes, there's no question. I think if you're looking to increase the value of your property, it's the bathrooms, kitchens, those types of things. I mean, everybody, you always hear that, and that's
what real estate people tell you too, right? Yeah.
Okay. And it's the truth. It really,
Mm-hmm.
really is the truth. I mean, because you can see 2 identical homes next to each other. One's been updated, one's not, and the updated one, without a doubt sells for more.
And so then do your folks actually go into the homes and assess it in that way? Or tell me, how does the property get assessed?
Well,
you show up with a house.
Yeah, if you're dealing with a new construction property, we'll be out there several times throughout the course of the project. Most of the homes take over a year to build. So with that, we'll probably be out there, 3-4 times a year. Until the project's completed. Ideally we would get in the property, all the way through from start to finish, so that we can make sure everything's accurate and as up to date as possible. There are some times where things change throughout the construction process, because the cost overruns or those types of things where they can't do everything that they have on the permits or the plans. So they change it a little bit, maybe downscale it a little because of the, cost overruns and things. So, to have us out there and through the property from start to finish is in our world, that's ideal,
So it looks like we have a comment. Crystal Sanford Brown. Hello, Carrie and Darrin. Thank you for highlighting the specifics of property assessments. Well, thanks for making a comment and thanks for saying hello to us. So nice to see you. So what is a person who becomes an assessor like? What is the basic knowledge that they have to have? And then what kind of training are they provided in order to be able to do their job?
Right. So most candidates have at least a bachelor's degree from an accredited university. But we require our candidates to have certain different levels certified through the state of Michigan. So there's the MCAT, which is a Michigan certified appraiser, and that's basically your entry level position. Then we have the MCAO, which is a Michigan certified. That's basically like the level one. Michigan advanced assessor, which is like your more advanced, like an appraiser 2 type person, and then your Michigan master. So all those courses are offered through the state of Michigan. Or the International Assessors Association. We can take some courses through them. But the certifications that we recognize here in Michigan is the ones that are offered through the state of Michigan. So,
what is it about Bloomfield Township? Why have you stayed as long as you have?
Honestly, because there's no place in the state of Michigan where you'll get to experience the type of properties we have here. There's no question.
The diversity.
Hands down, it is. You'll never, ever experience another community like Bloomfield Township. Never. And even in our interview process that we had recently with some candidates, that was one of the things that we brought up was that, you could have been an assessor for 15 or 20 years someplace else, come here, and the things that you'll experience, especially on the residential side, you'll never get it anyplace else,
and
ever.
What is it that's so special?
Just the uniqueness of the properties.
Okay.
Yep. The things people think about to put in their properties, the different, the wine cellars, the cigar bars, just all types of different,
Right.
really, really unique things. Movie theater. I mean, you'll never get that anyplace else.
Well, I guess maybe West Coast, or I don't know. I was just reading about Ivanka Trump, her place that's still on the market that they haven't been able to sell. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's in New York Times. It was about because it was so specific how she designed it, and whoever's going to get that property is probably going to tear everything out and start over because for that one, it's the location. But our locations are really unique. All the waterfront property, it's so incredible. And what about the 4-day work week?
Well, that's certainly another benefit for sure. I mean, longer days, but that's always a benefit.
I don't know if I can ever go back. I guess the next step would be to go to 4 days, 32 hours a week, because I think that's what some some people are trying that. So I don't know, maybe, down the road.
Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. So what else? What do you do with your 3-day weekends?
Most of my weekends are chewed up with my kids. I've got 3 kids, all very active in different sports, and I got a cheerleader, I got a softball and volleyball player. So I'm going all the time, and whenever I do get free time, I like to golf. So that occasionally chews up some of my time on the weekends too.
Right.
So.
Well, that's sport you can always do when you get older, when you're down the road.
Hopefully, as long as my kids don't wear me out first.
Yeah. I do want to also mention that there are FAQs about assessing on the website, and there's so much content on the website. Where you can find these FAQs is under Bloomfield Services Assessing FAQs. So one of those FAQs, let's see, which one's a really good one here? I've lived in my property for the past 5 years. Why did my current taxable value increase more than the inflation rate?
So as long as there wasn't a transfer of ownership, which it doesn't appear there was in that question, really the only way your taxable value can go up more than the inflation rate is if you've done something new, like an addition, or if you didn't have a garage and you built a garage. Those are really the only ways that your taxable value can increase more than the CPI.
How often do you make your way all the way around the township? Because we've got 44,000 residents. So obviously there's more people living in one house than one person, but how many properties, and then how often can you get around to all of them?
Well, unfortunately we don't get around to all of them as often as we'd like. We hit about 20% a year. If we have a good year, we get about 20% inspections done. other than that, we don't hit every property like we should every year or every 5 years. But it's a requirement that we do our 20%. So state requirement. So we get those done every year.
And then, so do you just knock on their door when they're going to have the assessment done, or how does it work?
So when we go around the different neighborhoods, what we'll do is we'll send a letter ahead of time, letting folks know that, hey, we're going to be in your neighborhood, this time of year, or for these weeks or for these amount of days. And then we'll pull all the record cards ahead of time. We'll look on our civic site program, which is GIS, to see if there's been anything that stands out as a difference, like a pool or a garage that's been added. But if not, we'll just, we'll go up and down the streets. We'll take pictures, knock on the doors. We'll take some spot measurements of areas that we can get to, like the front of the house. And as long as those are spot on with what we had, we'll take a picture when we leave and we'll move on. And we'll just go up and down the streets until we get, that particular neighborhood done. And then we'll just move on to the next one.
So I guess I've been working with the police department too much, and I'm thinking about people that are going door to door, the fraud that can happen these days. So how do people know that it's like your folks and not somebody trying to, evaluate their property?
So all of our employees have outfits on that have Bloomfield Township logos. If it's during the wintertime, they'll have a jacket on with the logo. They all have identification that they'll present when they show up at the door. But I think that's a good part of why we send that letter out. We'll send it out ahead of time so that everybody, we send it out ahead of time so that most people read through it and say, okay, oh yeah, I remember reading something about that. And all of our vehicles have logos on them too. We did that a couple years ago. So
the person should have identification, and they should be driving a township vehicle. So those are a couple of things to look for, because if they don't have those things, then they are not working for the township in the capacity of working with you. Correct.
Yeah. They'll have, all of our vehicles have a big logo on both sides of the car. They absolutely will have their identification with them. But again, they'll have clothes on that say Bloomfield Township and so forth. But I think the biggest thing, because we did this, we do this every year. I think the biggest thing is that we send those letters out explaining to them what we're doing, when we're going to be there, and then the process. We're only there for a few minutes. We'll be in and out. We'll get the information we need, and we'll move on to the next property. So
if someone has a comment, I can see it. Thanks, Martin. Thank you, Martin. He's our clerk. So thanks for watching, Martin.
Thanks, Martin.
We appreciate the support. What else can you tell us? What else do people need to know?
I think the big thing from my office's perspective is that I absolutely have an open door policy. I will be willing to sit down and talk to anybody, anytime, if they have any questions about their assessment, because I know it's a unique job. People don't know what we do for the most part. And so I think a lot of the questions that come up are right around March board of review time, but I encourage folks to come in throughout the year, call me, set up an appointment, email me, set up an appointment. And the thing is too, is that you'll talk directly to me. I'm not going to, pass you off to somebody else. I mean, if you have questions about your assessments, I'll sit down and talk to them and explain everything to them. And it's very difficult because this is one of the jobs in the township where you directly impacting people financially, so in my perspective is that because I'm impacting you financially, I owe you the time that you feel is required.
We work for the people, right? Yeah, we work for them. Sit down with you and
go over everything with you. And if you just have a question, call me. If you want to come in, sit down, review your record card, set up an appointment, we can do that. And it's just, I feel that's something that's very important to the residents, to be able to call me and come in and sit down, because I do know, believe it or not, I do know assessors have a bad reputation.
Not here.
Yeah, not here. But, in a lot of communities, they don't, they won't get through to the assessor, or the assessor will pass them off to somebody else. Here, I don't operate that way.
Mhm.
We don't operate that way. And so if you feel like you need to come in and sit down and talk to me, and by all means.
Well, and I think that's throughout all the departments in the township. I mean, from the
sure.
supervisor to the police department, everybody's like, if you want to come and talk to us,
Yeah.
that's what we're here for. I mean, here in the cable department, our door is open, and we take calls all the time and talk to the residents about what their concerns are, because without communicating with them, how do we know?
Right.
And give them the security of why they live and choose to live in
And
Bloomfield
more
Township.
oftentimes than not, if they have an issue with their record card or something, we can get it cleared up and straightened away right after the conversation's over with, instead of having to make them go to the board of review or, even the next step, which is the Michigan Tax Tribunal. I mean, again, I do have a very open door policy, and it's something that I feel is important, because most people don't, and like I said before, most people don't have any idea what we do. And to sit down and spend, some time with them, explaining it to them, I feel like that's something that should just come with the job.
Sure. Martin does want to tell us that door-to-door salespeople must register with the clerk's office, and if someone does have credentials issued by the office, which I think means they have a card or something that should be able to show you that they're supposed to be there. So getting back to our security issue, because Bloomfield Township is one of the safest places to live, and we want to keep it that way. So we have eyes and ears everywhere, including our people in the community. So can we put up the number again where people can reach Darrin? And 248-433-7710. And then there's the email address as well. So Darrin, I thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
It was really
It's been
good
fun.
talking to you. Yeah.
It's been fun.
Thanks. And we'll see you next time on Coffee with Carrie.